Hi, I'm Jennifer Worrall with Iteros. We build renewable energy management software, and before I get into what we actually do, I'm going to tell you about a problem that you might not even have realized existed. So, as everyone in here knows, we, in the United States, we are in a race to replace fossil fuels with clean energy, and 29 of our states have renewable portfolio standards. 8 more have renewable power goals. And California has one of the most aggressive of these goals. San Diego, even more so, with our goal to get to 100% renewable energy in the next 20 years. So this is great. But, so most of the people when you think about renewable energy, especially here in California, what you think about are the rooftop panels on residential rooftops. And that's, that's only 25% of the installed capacity of solar, even among the solar capacity, let alone all the renewable capacity. Most of what we're seeing are large commercial and industrial installations and really big utility commission projects, like this one here in Hawaii. We did not build this. This is just a sample. So these projects are the ones that are helping us to get to our renewable power sustainability goals, right? So, and these projects are typically carried out by energy developers who are hired by those commercial and industrial and utility customers. So, the energy developers, they got a problem. You see, so as we've been adding more and more renewables to our grid, what we're seeing is that we're getting more and more grid instability. So, and why is that? Well, traditional power sources like coal or natural gas, they're what we call dispatchable, which means we can tell them how much power we want them to produce from minute to minute and hour to hour. But if you could imagine a really big cloud going over this particular solar field and the difference in the amount of power that's generated on a minute-by-minute basis, it's huge. And then you multiply that with all of these huge renewable installations. So we've got this problem where we've got all this grid instability. So what are we going to do about that? And, we've got some ways that we can solve this problem. So, typically what happens is when you've got a lot of grid instability, you're going to see some certain market forces in place. So here in California, a lot of times what happens is that the price of power actually goes negative. So the energy developers are actually paying to send their power back to the grid. Bet you didn't know that. It's kind of crazy, right? And then the other thing that can happen is when you get to a certain level of grid instability, the grid operator can actually call for a curtailment where they actually say, you can't send any more power to the grid. So whether you're paying as much as $150 a megawatt hour to send your power to the grid, or whether you're being prohibited from even fulfilling a long-term contract with one of your customers, projects that at one point seemed like they made huge financial sense are suddenly starting to look like a bad investment. So, what we want to do is so this was always kind of a theoretical problem, and then we started seeing it happen a little bit more in Europe, and then over the last several years, we've seen this happen more and more in California. So 2013, 1% of trading intervals were negative. In 2015, 7% of these trading intervals were negative. But this didn't really make the news. But then this year happened. So, you see Cleantech Media reporting from CAISO, renewable energy curtailment could hit 8 gigawatts this spring. In fact, on March 26th, we actually had to curtail 6.5 gigawatts of power due to excess hydroelectric power. Fortune magazine, this April, called out when we topped 50% of our renewable energy, we drove those rates below zero. It's starting to make Fortune magazine. Most alarming of this, perhaps, is that The Economist devoted an entire issue to this problem back in February. So this begs the obvious question here of how are we going to keep investment flowing into these projects when this is the case? These projects are a lot like big real estate projects, and they require long-term financing based off of projected returns. And if we can't depend on those projections, how are we going to make people continue to put money into these large-scale projects that are helping us to make our renewable power goals? So Iteros can help with that. And so but basically, you've got devices like batteries, and they can help because they can absorb the power. They can take in all of the extra power that you're generating and then give it back when it makes the most economic sense. The problem with that is that they're a lot more complex. They require control software that allows them to be able to model it, to install it, and to operate it, and that can be a lot more difficult than solar installations alone. So Iteros can help, and this is how we do it. We build software for every stage of an energy developer's process. So we start off with our modeling tools, which are built into our application. They use the exact same control algorithms that you use in the real world. And this is really important because the continuity between your projected returns and the amount of power that you're actually getting is very important to the financiers of these projects. When it comes time for installation, we have tools that allow for automatic discovery and commissioning of these using industry standard plug-and-play mechanisms. Then we have templated controls that make the operation of these batteries very easy. A lot of times, people think with software, you're buying energy management software, right? So it's going to be just like Microsoft Word. You plug it in, you open it up, and you just start typing, and it's ready to go. But what I find is that energy management software is a lot more like Microsoft Excel. If you want to do anything interesting, you got to start writing macros. And then 2 months down the road, you get another spreadsheet, and you want to do something very similar, but so you copy that macro in, but then you've got to tweak it. And that's what a lot of energy management systems are like today. So we avoid that by having templates that allow you to avoid all of that customization. Once you're in operation, our machine learning algorithms continue to learn throughout the long lifetime of these projects. And this is important. You know on day one of when you get your cell phone that your battery works very differently than it does on day 500. And your neighbor next to you, even if they have the same phone, their battery works very differently than it does. And how differently do you plan your day, what calls you're going to take on your way home from work and things like that, because your battery works differently on day 1 than day 500. So our system does that automatically where we optimize. Finally, we know that energy developers, they don't just have one project, they've got lots of them. So our platform allows you to see all of your assets in one location with one portfolio. So by doing all of this, we allow these energy developers to have tools that make these installations a lot less risky by making them predictable, reliable, and optimized. Iteros is the tool that's going to allow us to meet those renewable portfolio standards. Thank you.